Wondering how you can become better at running your business? Entrepreneurship can be stressful. There's too much to do and not enough time. If you're isolated in your daily decisions, have no fear. Success and balance are possible. Welcome to the Small Business Answer Man podcast, where you master the art of running a successful business using practical advice from experts who want to help you succeed. Now, here's your host, Gary Wilbers.
Welcome. You know, we're early in the 2024, and my whole goal this first quarter is to set business owners and entrepreneurs up for success, because whatever you do today is going to multiply for the months going the rest of this 2024. And I think I've got a guest that's going to give us that same information that's going to really help our business, because our business grows by sales. You all know I love talking about the 6P business owner formula. That's my formula of people, productivity, pricing, promotion, process, and profits. Well, that pricing side is about sales. And I think we're going to get into that some today, probably with some of the other areas too, but that's going to be one area that we're going to talk about. So Kavyon, would you share with our listeners, what problem will you help them solve today?
The problem I'm going to help you solve is this, very simple. The one thing that very little people know about sales that isn't tactics, it isn't strategy, isn't all this sexy stuff that people think they need to make the deals or the sales happen. This is the one thing that most people miss. And if you get this one thing, all those other great, the tricks, the objection handlers, the tactics, all the little nicks and knacks, those will be like fuel on a fire.
This is going to be some great conversation. So stay with us, because Kavyon K is with us. He's the CEO of the Sales Connection, the foremost sales authority, and has transformed sales strategies globally, excelling in teaching professionals to connect authentically with prospects. He's guided the creation of multi-million-dollar businesses and trained over 21,000 sales reps across 100 countries. With over 300 million in sales, Kavyon is a celebrated international speaker and an expert in advancing sales techniques and business growth. Kavyon, I'm glad you came on the podcast. Welcome.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited about this conversation, because this is one of those areas that you and I both know most business owners are not always great salespeople. There's a few that are, but most of them get into it because they knew the industry that they're in, or they made the widget or whatever, but then selling it is totally different. So I'm just curious, from your standpoint, when you look at a salesperson and you look at even business owners, what are some of those qualities you think they need to really be good at sales?
Yeah. So first and foremost, let's just say this is, in order for you to have a successful business, you need to understand sales. I mean, the top billionaires in the world, they will always say the first skill they've ever learned was the ability to sell. The problem is growing up, we had this negative connotation towards sales. Like, I say sales, you think 80s slick back used car salesman. And that to me isn't sales, that's sleaze. So I'm not saying learn how to be sleaze. I'm saying learn how to be a sales professional. So that's most important. And I always kind of go back to way back. Henry Ford said, nothing happens until a sale's made.
Mm. Yeah, that is so true. And I think so important for people, because they have to understand that. And I love what you said. It's a skill.
Yes.
So you can learn it. Is that what you're telling me, right?
You can learn the skill. Now, I always say this. You can have naturally salespeople like me. I was just born for it's what I do. But I've taken people who've been engineers and turned them into salespeople. Will those people win 100% of the time over the person that has all the training, all the skill with the charisma? At that point, I'm not sure, right? Because salespeople, you asked, I think the one question too is like, what separates them? Salespeople know it's all about resilience. Salespeople are not afraid. You're not afraid to fail. You know that actually you're going to probably fail 80% of the time, and you're okay, because you're going to get 20%. That 20% is going to make you millions. You know that it's always about hard work and being able to go to that next level. And then most importantly, I've been telling people, now these are just kind of traits of a salesperson: commitment, desire, willing to show up, being open, being curious. Those are all great things about being a salesperson. But the most important thing that any salesperson I can give the advice of is, how connected are you to yourself?
Mm,
You are a direct reflection of the results you get in sales, especially in sales. And it doesn't matter, again, if you have all the skills and the perfect sheet to read off of, the perfect script, if you're not fully, deeply connected with who you are and what you represent and how you represent, whether it's your service, your business, your product, it doesn't matter. You're out of the game.
yeah, I can see why that's so important because number one, you become believable and people buy still from people. There's some
Uh,
things we buy online, but especially high ticket items. Tell me, go ahead.
people
You forgot something.
I was going to say, no, I love it because you said people buy for people, but it's actually people buy from people they like. Let me say
Yeah.
it again. People buy from people they like. Your job as a salesperson is you got to make them feel seen, you got to make them feel heard, and you got to make them feel liked.
Yeah.
When you do that, then you have a way higher chance of the sales and the probability of sales going through. I remember my very first mentor when I got into retail sales. I got in the interview and I was like, I'm going to be your best salesperson. I'm going to do this. I'm going to show up, blah, blah, blah. I went crazy. And he never said a word. He just stopped. He wrote down on a piece of paper. He wrote down, and then he slid it across the desk, and I picked it up. And I remember reading it, and I'll never forget. It said, people do business with people they like. And in that moment, I got my very first lesson in the business world. Shut up and listen.
Yeah. Yeah. Because so many people think, oh, tell them about the widgets and benefits and all these other things.
Yeah.
Get a connection becomes the key. And one of the questions I was going to ask you is how do we prioritize really that self connection over some of these traditional sales tactics? We've talked about a little bit, but what do we do there?
Yeah, well, that's the biggest question is that self connection, that connection yourself. It comes down to, again, your belief. If you actually don't believe in your product or your service, if you wouldn't buy your product and your service, if you wouldn't give it to your mother, and if you won't sell it for double the price and still feel confident in it, you shouldn't be selling it. Those are my three. So every time I think about a product that I need to be connected with, I ask the question this: would I use it? Would I buy it if I needed it? Yes or no? Then there's no, well, maybe. No, the conviction behind that is a yes or a no. The second question is, would I sell it to my mother? Would I sell it to her if she needed it? Yes or no? And then the third one is, if the product say $20,000, can I sell this for $40,000 and still believe it's going to give the value and the outcomes that the client or whoever needs it, prospect needs, deserves?
Yeah. And that becomes so important because number one, people can see through you. And when you talk about seen, heard, and liked, they can see if you're fake, that you're trying to push a product that you don't believe in.
I can teach skill set. I can teach script reading. I cannot teach conviction. And you only get conviction. I call them the 3 C's. You get conviction from certainty, from clarity, and then you get conviction. So certainty is this: are you absolutely certain in this product? Are you absolutely certain that this product or service is going to solve the problem of the prospect? Are you absolutely clear? This is clarity now, right? Do I have great clarity of what the outcomes are going to be? Do I have great clarity of what my prospect needs? Not what they're saying they need, what they truly need for them to get to where they want to go. Usually there's a problem, you have a solution. You as a salesperson, I always say, it's like being a doctor. Your job is to ask questions. Your job is to diagnose and figure out exactly what the prospect needs and then give them the solution so they can get to the promised land.
Yeah. Yeah. And I tell you, I hope you all are hearing what Kavyon's telling us, because he's giving us some true secrets, the 3 C's, certainty, clarity, conviction.
Yeah.
Do you have that? Then if you're the business owner, now the question is, if you have sales reps, does your staff have those same things? Because maybe you do because you're the business owner. But the problem is, if you got the people out there selling it and they don't have those 3, they only have 2 of the 3, they're not going to be as successful in the business of selling whatever they're selling for you.
They won't be, and they won't be in line with your culture, and they won't go be in congruency with what they're actually trying to achieve. I tell people, like, so we talked about a salesperson who has natural ability. So you take a salesperson who has natural ability and they have the skill set and they've been in the game. They have all the great things. They can, yes, they can get into a position where they can probably sell something that they're not in line with. The problem, challenge with that is that won't last long. They're going to burn out and they're going to feel a loss of fulfillment. And I know this because I've done this many times in my career. I did it more for the paycheck instead of the transformation. And I realize it's not about the commission, it is about the mission. And when you put it about the mission, what you're actually doing is you're making it about the people and not about you. So I always train my sales teams to say, guys, when you put yourself number one, you're going to end up on the bottom. When you put your prospects on the top, you'll end up on the top with them.
Yeah, I love that. And that really sets up, and really when you're talking about sales, people won't say this, but I work with nonprofits and I work with Special Olympics as I'm on their board. And when those people go out in development, what are they doing? If they believe in the mission, they're not trying to sell people on the mission. They're sharing that certainty, that clarity, that conviction of what they're doing in that mission. Well, it's the same way in business. So just turn it around and it becomes that same thing. How about a real life example of how that self connection has really made that impact on the sales scenario?
I'll give you an example of how not being self-connected.
Sure.
And I just changing it for you because I think that's really important. So I was closing an offer, a deal in the financial space. It was for Forex trading. Now, if you know anything about Forex trading, you don't want to get too down this rabbit hole. There's different types of personalities, there's different types of operating behaviors. So a lot of Forex traders are more like that engineer brain. They're more calculated. They say, let me think about a lot. They need a lot more facts. They need figures. You cannot really sell them, right? You've got to be able to speak to them a certain way. From my personality, that's super draining, number one. Number two, I don't care about any of that. So I remember I was so good at sales, and then I got this offer, and it was like I kept hitting this wall, and I kept being frustrated. And yes, I was still like number one on the team, but I knew that I was leaving thousands of dollars left on the table, and I couldn't figure it out. I kept like changing up my script, changing up my approach. And I remember when I went to my mentor and I said, well, what do you think? And the first question he asked is, do you Forex trade? I'm like, no. Do you like the people that Forex trade? Not really. And it was like, boom, like, oh my God. And ever since that day, you don't have to listen. You get the lesson once, you should, listen and move on. Right. So from that day, I always knew, how do I stay connected? It comes down to what we talked about is, okay, what are the 3 C's? Do I have them? Do I actually really believe authentically that this is a good product? Because if it isn't, I can't sell it. I just can't. I will not be able to back it. And I'll find every excuse in the book of why it's not working. But when you believe in something more than you want to breathe, you'll do whatever it takes to make it happen. You'll be speaking with so much conviction and belief that it's just going to be oozing on the prospect. You don't need sexy tricks or tactics or NLP when you actually believe and you just have authentic connection and conversations.
Yeah, I love that because that becomes from you then. And it's easy to replicate because you're being yourself in those conversations becomes so important. Let's move it just a little bit different conversation that I wanted to talk to you about is really differentiating between selling and closing and why you think this is so crucial today in the sales landscape.
Yeah. So selling, listen, a sale doesn't even happen until a transaction or, is gone through, till not even a handshake, till the money's gone through. So when the money's gone through, I call that closing. A lot of people don't understand that sales is building the relationship. Sales is doing what it takes, the emailing, the texting, the outreach, building the relationship, cultivating that relationship. So then when you get to the end, you get to what we call the close. Now, here's the thing. There are salespeople out there. These are people who can go out and they can build amazing relationships and they know how to be likable and charismatic. But every time it comes to the actual close, they can't get it done. They're afraid to actually ask for the sale. They have money beliefs problems that they just don't know how they even have them. So cash or something 50,000, 20,000, which they never would invest in themselves, they can never get the deal done because they don't have that conviction. A closer knows the sales process is done and I'm going to close this right away. And usually nowadays, why it's most important is you can actually get marketing. And if the marketing is done right, I always say this, you actually don't need the best salesperson. But if marketing isn't done right, then you need the best salesperson. And that's why marketing and sales goes together like this. I'm crossing my hands, listening, right? They come together, but you'll always hear or see the battle between marketing and sales. And I'm always fighting for us to come together, because the moment marketing meets sales, that's when the business becomes powerful. In fact, in my business, I bring the marketers right to my salespeople and I make sure they sit together so they can see how they operate and how they think to make the sales process successful for the salespeople.
Yeah, that becomes huge, because if they don't, there's just that disconnection that comes there. And of course, if there's a disconnection, you're not going to make the sales. One thing I'm always curious about, since I've got an expert here, I'm going to, this is what you call some free consulting that I'm getting from you, Kavyon. So thank you today for that. But, a lot of common mistakes people make is when they're selling over the phone. And I'm sure you've seen that from salespeople when they're over the phone. In person, they can do that, but they cannot do it when they're on the phone. And some today, now we have capability to do video. You and I are on video right now, and some of this is they're hearing it on audio, but it allows us to see those emotions, everything. And on the phone, you don't get some of that. So what would you share with some people there, the common mistakes they make when they're using the phone to make sales?
Well, common mistakes a lot of salespeople make is they talk too much. First of all, they talk too much. Secondly, if they're in panic, or if they're in scarcity, they're going to have commission breath, which is like, I want the sale, I want the sale, I want the sale. They're not going to be in alignment. They're not going to have that connection. Over the phone, you lose the physical, but you don't lose the energy. And a lot of people think that I know we see a lot of salespeople. Yeah, I just kind of sit down on a sales call. I don't sit down. I stand up, because I know when I stand up, I'm bringing the right energy. Because whether you believe it or not, you can feel my energy right now on this call, me and you. So what makes you not think that the prospect can't feel that energy? And I think a lot of salespeople miss that's actually super, very, very important. The thing with on the phone is you got to have the ability to create that likability we were talking about. They got to like you. They got to know you. They got to trust you. Right? So how do you create that? And I'll tell you this, you don't create it by just speaking in their face and selling products and features. You create it by creating a foundation of trust and authority, and most important, by asking the right questions and actually listening to what the prospect says. Now, for the experts out there listening to this, the challenge for you is to listen to what the prospect's not saying. That's how you can double your sales.
Yeah, I love this. And I love that we had you on, because early in the year, this is something people need to think about. Sales is not as difficult, but it is a skill, as we talked about earlier, that we have to keep learning from, because even if you've done it for a long time, it's just like football. Why do they have coaches?
Yeah.
Because why? You stop doing some of the things you were successful in.
Yeah. And I know a lot of salespeople, trainers and coaches, and they lose it. You lose your tongue, I always call it. So if you don't use it, you'll lose it. Sales is a skill, and it's a skill that can be developed and should be developed. And if you're an entrepreneur, you own a business, you think you're going to do anything that's not an employee, you need to be a salesperson. In fact, this is what I say. Everything you get in your life, or everything you want in your life, is a sale. Everything you get is your commission.
Yeah, that's a great analogy there. I tell you, I think you and I could go for a while, but I want to ask you this question before we have to kind of transition and stuff, because I'm hearing this, and I'm sure you're hearing it in the industry too. And some business owners may be able to think, okay, I'm going to replace that person with AI, or way sales are evolving. I'm not going to need a sales force anymore. what would be kind of your philosophy there of missing on the human connection?
My philosophy is, as advanced as AI is, I don't believe it's at advanced at the level of empathy, true empathy. And sales is empathy. So we bring AI in. So businesses who are not using AI will be out of, like, business salespeople or sales programs or whatever it is, will be out of business if you're not using AI. The ones that are using AI effectively and making the process better, stronger, faster, more quickly are going to be the ones that actually win. So I don't think robots are taking over. Humans who know how to use the robots to better their life and better their process are going to win. And the ones that are fighting it are like, man, this is a fad. I mean, anyone that thinks that this AI is a fad, I mean, you thought the internet was a fad too, right? Like, this is the latest, greatest invention, than bigger than the internet. And for example, back to you, I know you didn't ask this question. As soon as it came out, when talking it is, ChatGPT, we said to our team, anyone who's not using it will be fired, because I know that it'll increase your work capacity by at least 30%. Same for salespeople.
Yeah. And the tools that's coming out available to it. If you're not on it as a business owner right now, you just better go learn that, because right now you're going to be passed up.
Yeah, you will be passed up. Yeah.
I mean, not just sales, your business is going to get passed up. You might as well find your buyer, because you better get out. And I still hear some people, and I'm just like, no, it doesn't matter what industry you're in. It's kind of like this thing here. I used to sell the mobile phones, the wireless. Back in the day, they called them mobile phones, the wireless phones. And my dad actually told me, he said, well, who's going to buy those things?
Well, yeah. So I love this quote. I always say this quote from Eric Hoffer. And I think you'll appreciate this, because we're talking about change. We're going through change and, AI. And Eric Hoffer said this: in times of change, learners inherit the earth, while the learned find themselves beautifully equipped to deal with a world that no longer exists.
Love that. Love that.
Like, if you like, and I want to always speaks to me, right? Because that's the whole, do I have a growth mindset, or do I have a fixed mindset?
Right. Yeah. And it's really about that change. And right now, business world is changing. Everything's changing, and it's just moving at a faster pace. So it's
exciting. You should be excited about it. You shouldn't be scared of it. You should be excited, dive in, embrace it. And just know that I truly believe, no matter how great robots are, there's always going to be needed. There's always going to be need for a true sales professional.
Great philosophy. Now, you got some great insights. I've looked at your website and some strategies to really help people at thesalesconnection.com. Anything that you want to share with them there, please do.
That's it. We've made it very easy. So if anyone goes to thesalesconnection.com, we have a lot of resources. If you're a business owner, we have a lot of resources for you on how to train your sales team, on how to get your KPIs, what to look for. If you're a sales professional, we have a lot of resources on how to be a better sales professional, tricks, and all the stuff that you need to be successful with.
And a great YouTube channel, so you can check them out on YouTube and get some great information that's available to you. LinkedIn also will have all that in show notes that they can reach out and connect with you, Kavyon. Now, Kavyon, I have one question I ask every guest. And we've talked a lot about sales, but it doesn't have to be about sales. But what would be your best advice you would give the business owners and entrepreneurs?
Well, I'm going to keep it with the sales, and I'm going to say this. The best advice I can give you is take care of your sales team. Even though they drive you crazy, even though I know they can be a pain in the ass, believe me, I'm one of them. I know these are the same people that drive your bottom line. These are the same people that will go the distance, stay that extra hour just to get the sale so you can keep your profits. You got to take care of them. You got to appreciate them so that they will do the work that you want them to do it, and do it with great, great success. Because again, I said it earlier and I'll say it again, nothing happens until a sale is made.
And remember that. And what I've been talking about this first quarter, we want business owners to get to the end of the rainbow. And there's a pot of gold that is called profits this year in 2024. Because we know a lot of business owners got to the end of the rainbow last year and there was nothing in the pot.
Yes.
And instead, we want profits there. And that's why we're talking about that. And this is all about pricing and my 6 Ps about sales. Sales drives everything. Nothing is done without sales being done. So Kavyon, I can't thank you enough for joining us and sharing your expertise to my listeners.
Appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
So always give you an action item. So my action item is going to be that. How is your sales process? You personally, as well as if you have a team of salespeople, do you need to check out some of the resources on the salesconnection.com? Do you need to improve on this area? Not only yourself, but your company. If you want to drive more sales, most of the times what we've got to do is we've got to get better at that skill set. So decide what you need to do there in that area so you come up to the end of 2024 to have that pot of gold and there's something actually in that pot versus it being empty. So come back next week. We'll have another great podcast. Remember, like and share this. I know you know another business owner that needs to hear this message. So if you'd share it, we do truly appreciate it. We'll see you next week. Make it a great day.
That's all the time we have for this week. To continue your journey, head over to smallbusinessanswerman.biz to access the tools and resources mentioned in today's show. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share it with someone who would benefit from listening. That's smallbusinessanswerman.biz. Until next time, remember, when you find the right solutions, your business grows and you get your time back.